Thank you so much for coming. Incredibly grateful. I think to start with, you've all got this wonderful drink in front of you. I think, Ben, I'd love you to kind of introduce Season. As soon as I kind of saw it, it's intrigued me intrigued me endlessly. What is it? Why have you decided to create it? And then, people can put it in their drink and see how it works.
Yeah, so thanks so much for coming down. I would never go to an event like this, so I'm massively appreciative to come to an event like this. Thank you. Secondly, you've got unseasoned spritzes. So I think you've got Campari, blood orange soda, wedge of orange, and importantly a straw. So you can season your own drinks, because again, I'm really fucking lazy. So you got bottles of Season on the table. I would recommend Season Dark, which is the black one. And that'll give you that smoked cherry wood and cola nut and star anise and black pepper, red chili, porcini mushrooms, cocoa, orange, super aromatic, good heat, good bitterness. Give it 3 dashes into that. Try it before and try it after is quite nice to do. And I can tell you why you're doing that, a bit more about it.
Yeah, so tell me about the gestation period. So it's 2017. You've got this idea for, what is it? Is it? I know it's a bit like bitters. Like, tell me exactly what it is. So, and how did the idea come around?
Yeah, so 5,000 years ago, the ancient Egyptians started making these things called medicinal bitters, and it was basically using lots of different ingredients that had medicinal properties that could, obviously stop you feeling ill. About 200 years ago, this little company called Angostura, that you might have heard of, launched. And it was launched actually by a German doctor who was based in Venezuela and trying to help his soldiers, or the soldiers, not be ill. And so he developed this kind of medicinal bitter that then suddenly started appearing in cocktail recipes and then became adopted into things that you guys will know, like the old-fashioned. And so the first ever mention of a cocktail recipe was 1806, and it called for spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters. And so you've got this kind of very old category of cocktail bitters that are used to accentuate flavor, to balance drinks, to add complexity, to bring depth. And they're really cool little, like, very concentrated liquids. And historically, they've always contained alcohol as their base, because that was the best preservation kind of base solvent to extract ingredients in, but also mean that things didn't go off. But they don't actually need alcohol in them to do their job. So 2017, we launched Seedlip, and that was going really well. And I just was like, I learned that there are 47,000 edible plants on this planet, and I thought that was fucking amazing. And so I went onto this website called G.E. Baldwin's, which is a really old apothecary kind of website where you can lose a lot of money ordering lots of really weird dried ingredients. And so I ended up buying about 80 different ingredients, nothing that you'd be massively, maybe, apart from maybe Sam, wherever he is, familiar with. There he is. But like bog bean and feverfew and weird seaweeds like bladderwrack, and these things tasted fucking disgusting. But I started to make blends of these bitters, and I was making like a marmalade bitters or a chai tea bitters.
Indeed.
And they were cool. We could use them in Seedlip events. And then I kind of put the idea on the shelf, really. I sort of put it on the shelf and then picked it up about 2.5 years ago and got excited about it again and started properly looking into the category. And this is the weirdest category in the world, right? It's about $100 million category globally. 92% of it is run by one brand, Angostura. 92%. Like, you guys are all in the world of food and drink. I don't know another category that has that kind of majority. And they have that kind of majority and they don't have to do anything. So they're owned by a run business. They just pulled along. No one in the trade in the UK knows even how much they pay for a bottle. They've got this weird label, Royal Warrant. They don't pay duty, which is incredible considering they're like 44.7% ABV. They don't pay VAT. And no one knows how much a bottle is. It's kind of mad. So yeah, US is the biggest cocktail bitters market in the world, and we launched there in 2 weeks' time. So we launched we're like a few months old. I'm right back at the beginning. We're babies, but we've had a really good start, and we've got some really amazing chefs that really love what we're doing, which is great. And we kind of want people to season their drinks. You know, we spend all this time hearing about chefs and seasoning and food, and I don't know about you guys, but salt and pepper are really amazing things. But we don't really season our drinks, and so I kind of was keen to like make it really simple and only have two products: a light one for your light drinks, and a dark one for your dark drinks. And they are 0.0, but as you have just done, you put it in alcohol. They are for alcoholic drinks, non-alcoholic drinks, food. I kind of don't really care what people do with them, as long as they use them. And it's been, it's fun. I get to work with like about 30 different ingredients, which is great. I get to work with my favorite ingredient, which we use in Season Light, which is the ingredient most people have never heard of, which is called cis-3-hexanol.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it sounds dreadful, doesn't it? When you extract menthol from mint, after you've extracted the menthol from mint, and by the way, I could talk about all this stuff all day, so do shut me up, but you can extract another compound from mint, and the other compound you can extract is cis-3-hexanol. So if you grab the bottle of Season Light, and you smell that, and I tell you that cis-3-hexanol gives you fresh cut grass like you wouldn't believe, you'll kind of see what I mean. They only make 2 tons of cis-3-hexanol globally every year. It's incredibly expensive and rare, but is the magic in Season Light.
And how did you find that? Like, how do you go and go into a weird little lab by a monastery and find these things?
We did this Chelsea Flower Show coming up, and we did a garden at Chelsea Flower Show, all about the pea family. That's another thing that I could talk to you till the cows come home about. But as part of that, we served a drink to all the press, and I made an extract with grass, and it was really hard to do. And then a food scientist that I know said, why have you gone to all that effort? There's a compound that does that, that's isolated, that you could have used. And then he introduced me to cis-3-hexanol. So cis-3-hexanol has been in my brains for 6 years as well.
It's mad. What I want to start with is, and we're going to run for about half hour, and then we'll jump into some questions at the end. But obviously, I think when we recorded our second podcast, which hasn't gone out yet, will be out soon, we talked about your diagnosis with autism and ADHD. Yeah. And one of the things you said to me is that you have this ability to almost create this blueprint and this prudent path to see the future. You did it with Seedlip, no alcohol, well, low to no to, I always get that wrong. Which one's the right one?
No to low.
Same
low,
thing.
No.
You could see into the future. The first guy to do that. The same with the podcast. The same with the seasoned drinks. You've got this ability to see into the future. And there's a quote which may resonate with some of you guys, but it's basically saying that building a business or being a founder is like jumping off a cliff and building a plane on the way down. And I think you kind of, as you jump off and you jump into these, whether it's Seedlip or Season, you already know what the fucking plane looks like. Do you know what I mean? So what I'm trying to kind of tap into is how do you kind of have this blueprint into seeing things in the future? Because I think it can help tons of people starting with new business ideas. I mean, you briefly touched on it just then, like looking into the category data and stuff like that. But yeah, how do you see into the future? Maybe we can use Seedlip or Season as an example.
Yeah, so I think I'm only learning now that that's how my brain works. I was diagnosed autistic and ADHD in 2022, and I didn't even really know what those things were before I was diagnosed. So I've probably been guilty of like hating my brain historically and not fully appreciating the way that it works. And so now I can recognize that there are certain aspects of the way that my brain works, and whether that's like I have a photographic memory, and that I'm now using rather than just sort of having, if that makes sense. I'm kind of like putting it to actual use. And the seeing the blueprint of joining lots of different dots and connecting and seeing patterns, both figuratively and literally. I think when it comes to trying to do something new or something that feels like it goes a bit against the grain or is not the norm, it can be immensely helpful, but that doesn't mean it's always right. You know, like I can see a blueprint of how Season can grow.
What is that blueprint? And again, it could be wrong. It's like creating something.
The blueprint, the blueprint with Seedlip was this is a weird new thing, and nobody knows what the hell a non-alcoholic spirit is, and lots of people thought that I was a fucking idiot and it was the worst idea ever. But lots of other people thought it was great and brilliant. So at least there was strength of feeling, like on either side. But the blueprint was chase credibility. It was basically chase credibility.
You say chase credibility,
i.e., I never said Seedlip was any good, but people listened to top chefs or bartenders or the trade or buyers or whatever. So it was trying to find any way to make sure that I never had to say that Seedlip was any good.
And then, so I get that bit. You get the kind of the people with the authority.
So just to follow through that then spits out into a distribution strategy. It spits out into a marketing strategy. It spits out into a hiring strategy. It spits out into a SKU strategy. And a network, and how to focus on getting the right relationships. And then it was really simplistic in some ways of find the 500 best accounts in London, in the UK, and understand that those amazing accounts are happening in loads of other cities around the world. So instead of going and conquering Liverpool and Manchester and Birmingham and York, etc., it was like, no, we're going to New York and we're going to Copenhagen and we're going to Barcelona, because that's where these people all operate at the same level. We talked about previously, you only need 1,000 fans, actually, and there are 1,000 bartenders and chefs and drinks writers, and we got to all of them, and that's they gave us the keys to unlock a city. So yeah, it was trying to think macro and micro to get into the detail.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was trying to tease out. Is the I think that's genius how you can think on a macro scale, but then i.e. go and hit you don't need every single, because I think the common sense is right, we'll get London going, then go and get Manchester going, and then go and get Liverpool going. It's actually, and this is the blueprint, is like, well, fuck, if we go to Copenhagen, there's more of the same, the 1,000 true fans are there.
Yes.
Obviously your air miles are probably through the roof, but that makes really sense. And then for these guys who are building brands, new ideas, interesting ideas, is there anything you could speak to of how they can kind of, they've done the jump bit, right? They've jumped off, and they're trying to build this plane. There's like a gazillion things that they can, pull their attention. I think focus is a thing that every guest on the pod says to me, is like, fucking focus. Find your thing that you got to focus on. Is there anything you could speak to about that kind of prudent path to?
I mean, I feel like I will have one of the smallest brands in this room, right? So I'm right back to the beginning with a baby and a startup that we are building the plane as we're flying it. We're not on the way down, which is good. Like, unfortunately, we're on the way up. But I'm so happy to be back at the beginning, because that's for me anyway, the messy, fun, stressful, kind of quite fucking ridiculous bit that some of you are smiling, so you all kind of know what I mean. And I'm trying to do everything to sort of not just replicate what we did with Seedlip.
What are some of the lessons you want to, like, what are the failures or hard lessons you made at Seedlip that you're not going to allow to spill into Season?
Yeah, so for example, I launched Seedlip on my own. I didn't launch Season on my own. So we have a small team. I'm not doing everything myself. Mm-hmm. That's number one. Number two, we're going to the US even earlier than we did with Seedlip. 6 months in, we'll be nationwide available and focused on New York City. That's kind of different because there's it's the biggest drinks market in the world, and we're going to go and get started.
Talk to me about the US, because that is everyone says to me that's
a dangerous place.
Yeah. Like, how do you actually? So you go to New York. So I spoke to Aaron from Non-Wine. He's an amazing guy, amazing founder. Similarly, has ADHD and autism. So his brain is very similar to you. Me and him got the house on fire. And he'd been in London. Was as he said, I think it was like saying turning it on. Like, he was in London, Barcelona, just been to Tokyo. I was thinking, Jesus Christ, like, how you say the blueprint is right. Let's go to where these people are. Get that. How do you actually get it in? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's not the wheels in, but like there's so many different kind of nuances to each market. Do you know what I mean? So
there are, and I guess cocktail bitters, as I said, biggest market is the US. So in the UK, we don't really make cocktails at home. In the US, they absolutely do, and it's really normal too. So we're kind of going, we can do some stuff in London, but actually it's the US that's the big opportunity. So let's go faster so that we can learn faster. Mm-hmm. So we're not going with all the answers. But I think the way that we grew Seedlip, up to like 2019, now the way that brands are grown is completely different. Like, the world has actually changed. I know COVID is responsible for a lot of that, but so is just the way that people buy and shop and socialize. And so we're trying to adapt Season into that, to kind of go, let's not go and try and race to the supermarkets, for example, because that is the most ridiculous thing about this market, is that the destination is having 5 relationships and being at the mercy of these big fucking grocers. And that is, like, you guys are either agreeing or violently disagreeing with me there, but it doesn't make any business sense to me, the UK, from a food and drink perspective.
So what's the other option if you want to get that volume? Where does you pull that from?
You can pull it from another market.
That's what I'm trying to work out.
So I don't subscribe to the stay in one market, go really deep, and then a few years later go to another market. Obviously, it depends on your business and your audience. But for us, it doesn't make any sense that we're in all these Michelin star restaurants with Season. It doesn't make any sense to go, right, we're going to stay in the UK and go all the way down to my local pub in Lincolnshire, and then we're going to go and talk to these amazing Michelin star restaurants with top chefs in another market. It doesn't make any sense. They all these guys at the top of their kind of game, they're all now, because of the world of social media, everything's happening at the same time. Everything's happening at the same time in Copenhagen and Sydney and New York and Chicago and LA and Madrid, amongst the kind of, I guess, the people at the forefront of food and drink. It's no longer the case that something has to wait 10 years to come over to the UK, or vice versa, go to the US. So yeah, and it's never been easier, I think, to actually export a business.
What are the watch outs with export? Like, just because I know that, again, loads of people say to me, like, that is a like riddle wrapped in enigma, as they say. It's like, what are some of the watch outs with? Because it's not just like, right, here's a pallet, mate.
No,
we're in New York. Like,
no, it's really not. It's really not. If you don't find the right partners and the right distributors, then it's difficult. I think and I know this because we had it early days with Seedlip. We heard from 100 countries in the first 3 months, and there were people who were clearly sharks going, oh yeah, I'll take 5 pallets. And you're like, well, I don't have 5 pallets, but also like, whoa, somebody wants 5 pallets. That's pretty fucking cool. And so I think there's a lot of time that can be wasted when, it's just a lot of diligence, which you can now do because you can ask other people, you can look at other people's portfolios and see what other kind of brands that they have. And now it's easier than ever to get in contact with people. You can interrupt, you can DM people, you can find them on LinkedIn. There's no excuses now actually for not being able to do easy, quick diligence, especially on distributors. And you can see a lot by the kind of company that they keep in terms of the portfolios that they have. And then we've learned to do this, but asking them to pitch to you, I think, is really important. So it's the best way of you do it with a brand agency, you do it with a social agency, you do it with a PR agency. Why wouldn't you do it with a distributor to really understand whether they get your business and have a plan and can, ultimately they can pitch your business. And if they win the pitch, they've already done the plan, which is great. It saves a lot of time.
Wait, if they win the pitch, they've done the plan.
They've already had to think through how they would launch it and plan it.
Yeah.
So you're already a step ahead.
Yeah. I want to talk about a book called The Art of Simple Thought.
I don't know that one. Brutal Simplicity of Thought.
Brutal Simplicity of Thought. Fuck it out. And it written down as like The Art of Simple Thought. That's the book you give to everyone.
It's basically
that's quite complex thought.
But that's the same premise. Yeah, let's talk about that.
So there was 2 books you gave to every employee at Seedlip.
3,
which were the what of Simple Thought?
Nothing of Simple Thought. Brutal Simplicity of Thought.
Yep.
By Saatchi, Predatory Thinking by Dave Trott, and fucking hell, I can't remember the third one. Let me see it. Dan Barber, Third Plate. There we go.
So the Brutal Simplicity of Thought. Yeah, bingo. Why that book? And I suppose where I'm going with this is and we're kind of talking about this blueprint thing, is there's so much complexity. Like, I think Julian Metcalf said to me, he goes, complexity is easy, simplicity is hard. Correct. It's so easy to get just, discombobulated with all sorts of things pulling left and right. So the Brutal Simplicity of Thought, like, what is the one lesson from that book that you kind of, when people join Seedlip, you're like, well, this is the way we want to do things around here. Yeah.
It's really simple. And it builds on what Julian has said. It's really hard to make things simple, and so 99% of people or brands or businesses don't. And it's really, really amazing when you get something made simple. You have to make it simple. You can't just simplify it. You got to go through the process of making something, of distilling something down. So, case in point, the unwritten rule within cocktail bitters is to have a massive range, right? You've got some brands that have 130 SKUs, and so the habit is lavender bitters, lemon bitters, orange bitters, fucking chocolate mole bitters, whatever, all these individual flavors. And actually that is so unhelpful for the consumer, because no one wants 130 bottles of one brand at their house. and no one has a need for all these individual components. So we made it really simple by just having light and dark, and building more complexity into our liquids, but more simplicity in our kind of in the actual range. And I guess we set ourselves a rule, right? We kind of gone, you only need 2 products. We can't have a massive range. So the message with Seedlip was everything had to boil back to Seedlip and tonic. That's it. That was it. Everything. Didn't matter whether it was go and have design gardens at Chelsea Flower Show, go and do events, all these fancy places, go and be in other markets, and go and be at World's 50 Best Awards, all this stuff, everything still boiled back to, it's got to be about Seedlip and tonic. And so, yeah, it was trying to keep the focus of that simplicity, but we just need to introduce people to Seedlip and tonic. That's it. That's all we have to do. Just got to find clever, interesting ways to do that.
I think you said I think you said you can't simplify. You have to before you have to do the
You have to make it simple.
Make it simple, yeah, that's exactly what you said. Unpack that a little bit. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because I think everyone in the room, and we were talking about this before, is my kind of modus operandi is fucking chaos and complexity. So I'm asking this selfishly, is how do you make it simple versus simplifying? What's the difference?
I am actually a really slow thinker. I can be incredibly impatient, but if you think that on the face of it, I thought of doing non-alcoholic cocktail bitters in 2017, and it actually took me 6 years to fucking launch it, and it took me 4 years to get to light and dark, which sounds so obvious, but it's taken a really long time to get there.
What is the
I don't know. Stuff needs time. I don't have a process. I don't have I just, things have to marinate, and they have to, I work in sprints is the only process I know. And so I get very excited. I get fully into it, get to the bottom of the barrel, learn everything there is to learn, figure everything out that I need to figure out. And then it needs to be left for a while.
There's, I don't know who was telling me about, but John Cleese, who did Monty Python, he's got a little book, really short book on creativity. And he basically says when this is before computers and shit, right? Yeah. He would lose his script, sometimes lose his script, and he'd come back, and when he'd go back to it straight off the cuff, he'd let it marinate for a bit, and he'd go back to it, and it was a gazillion times better. Yeah. And I think there's something in starting ideas, and then just almost, I think, what was it? Rick Rubin says, not distraction is not procrastination. So actually he just goes on a drive. I mean, that's day to day, but actually having a step back from hey, we may do this MPD, we may launch in this market, and then easing off and just kind of letting it sort of fester in the
and so the important thing is having enough of those things happening at various different times. So to me, being farming boy, it's like crop rotation, and it's like planting things that some things will grow really fast and need a lot of attention, and it's all quick and it happens, and other things grow really slow, like trees, and so it's important to have a mixture of those things. We're building a laboratory that starts next week for another brand, and that's a project that I've been thinking about for 12 years. And we're going to make 2,000 bottles of it later this year. And that's fucking it. And it's 12 years.
This is by a monastery, isn't it?
Yeah, this is...
Talk to me about why it's by what's the monastery vibe?
We've got this place where this guy used to have a car museum and a function room. And it's 50 feet away from the ruins of this Benedictine monastery from the 1100s. There's 10,000 bodies buried in there, but it just, I don't know, it just works. We're just around forests and fields and rivers and in the right setting for this next project. But it's like 12 years. That sounds ridiculous to then only make 2,000 bottles. And I've got no idea if it's going to work, but no one's ever done it before. So I'm kind of excited to try it and give it a go.
Yeah, it's like part of today I wanted to kind of get into the way your brain works. We're definitely in there, mate.
You
But
don't.
I want to talk about your podcast, Hidden 20%.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. You've had Kit Harington, isn't it?
Yeah.
Game of Thrones bloke.
Yeah.
Who else? There's loads.
Cary Grant and Lottie Moss and clever expert psychologists.
So I'd love to know what's one conversation that kind of, because I do loads of podcasts, right? Sometimes you have a conversation and you're not expecting it, like that was insane. I think I did Rick Stein something the other week, and he was telling me about this vanilla trout thing, vanilla trout, and he basically said the curse of 1% improvement. So if you're making everything better, suddenly you can actually go from like, this is what we wanted to create, and you end up over here. And I thought, that's so interesting. I wasn't expecting to learn that. And apparently Rick Stein came in and was like, what the fuck's happened to vanilla trout, basically? Yeah. And it's like, it's the hidden curse of 1% improvement. I'd love to know what's been one, conversation you sat down, you're like, and you learned something that's been like, wow.
Oh, I mean, we've done 16 episodes and we've just paused because we're now recording series 2. But the premise is, 20% of the world are neurodivergent. So that's everything from ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, Tourette's. That's 1.6 billion people. And yet, 85% of people in our prison system are neurodivergent, and less than 40% of neurodivergent adults are in full-time employment, and 85% of kids who are diagnosed dyslexic are still incredibly ashamed about that. And I could go on. There's loads, suicide rates, etc. There's loads of problems. There's loads of myths. There's a medication shortage for ADHD medication, and there's 10-year waiting lists for assessments. And so there's like all this shit that we're in 2024, and there's all this stigma and stereotype and myths and just nonsense. And yet, so much of, we wouldn't have these fucking light bulbs if it wasn't for people who thought differently, like Edison, or I'm sure you've all got iPhones. We owe so much, from like being able to shop at IKEA, for example, to electricity, to Einstein, Newton, Marie Curie, Muhammad Ali, Marilyn Monroe. I could go on, like so many people that we all know and who contribute so much actually to our daily lives now were neurodivergent. And so I'm kind of like, how is there all this amazingness and then all this shit? And so we're trying to join the dots and accelerate society's understanding of neurodiversity, because it's basically just different, not a problem, just different. And we've had this incredibly diverse array of guests that have come on, from people, A-list, Hollywood actors, to like incredible psychologists, to reality TV stars, to who else we had? Authors, like a whole spectrum of people, which is amazing. I think the big learning that, and my wife came on as well, which was incredibly brave of her, to come and chat about what a nightmare I am. So the main thing I've learned is we've done a 12-week test, and we're a charity, so we've not spent really any money on it, and we've had millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people seeing our stuff and listening to these episodes. And the one big learning is not from one particular episode. It's probably just the learning that what we're doing has a place in the world. And then the slightly terrifying bit of like, fuck, I don't want to let it down. And so, and this was same with Seedlip, same with Season. I'm always coming from a place of, if it's a good idea, I don't want to let it down. And that doesn't mean by let it down, I wouldn't do it justice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do it a disservice as an idea. And so that's right where we are literally today, having conversations about how do we not let this down and go bigger and better and bolder and do more activity as a charity. So we've got a big research project. We're commissioning documentary that goes into treatment end of this year, fundraiser that's planned for the end of next year. It's like, let's just fucking go for it.
How did your because you had kids before you got diagnosed, right? How did that change your relationship with your kids? I know you've had it, your wife on the podcast, and that was quite emotional and cathartic and all those things. But how did it change your relationship? You got 3 kids, right?
3 kids, yeah. 3 girls.
3 girls.
Yeah. Very conducive to like startups.
No, that's it.
I tell you what, I thought having kids was going to be really bad for business, and actually for balance, and they've been amazing. They are the best stop kind of focus on the kids. Yeah, they are the best balancer. They are amazing at that. They, my 11-year-old, she doesn't have any of the kind of she doesn't know what Rain Man is, the connotations of kind of what autism might have been, or that it's just like weird little boys licking the windows on buses.
What is I think I know it's a film. Yeah,
the Rain Man is a film with Dustin Hoffman. That portrays actually not an autistic man, but became the stereotypical image of, you're so young, mate, of baby face, mate. Became the stereotypical image of autism.
What's it right?
Which is a weird maths genius, right? And they're not all like that. So my kids kind of take it for what it is, and it's like, Daddy thinks differently. And we have these green badges, and you all have these in your goodie bags, and they're just a symbol of support, really, and solidarity. They don't say I am autistic on them. They can be worn by anybody. But my kids stole a load of my badges without me knowing and took them in against their class. And that's my 5-year-old and my 11-year-old. And you're like, hey, we sell these for fucking £10. They go to the charity guides. Like, good. But then I asked my 5-year-old, well, she's 4.5, but she'll tell you she's 5. I was like, River, why, what did you say to like your class and your teacher when you took these in? And she was just like, I just said that we wear these badges because some people think differently, and that's good. And you're just like, yeah, that is all it is, instead of it being a negative, problematic thing.
Because that's what you said. You said you've got all this like brilliance, like the light bulb, all those amazing creations, the iPhone, but then you've got all this kind of trough of shit on the other side. Yeah. So it's the final thing to wrap up with, and then we'll open this up, is like, how do you, and you said you can't let a good idea down. Yeah. Like what is, I suppose, linking this back to the blueprint, what is the blueprint to kind of close that gap? Do you know what I mean?
Close the gap between...
We've got these brilliant, amazing ideas that come from neurodivergency, but then you've got this, as I say, trough of shit with people thinking it's like the Rain Man effect, etc. How do you, what's the way you're going to try and like chip away at that?
Yeah, so I'm firstly being diagnosed has been so liberating, because I now have answers as to why my brain works the way it works. And so I'm only kind of really starting to appreciate the good bits and the blueprint bits and the photographic bits, and try and harness those and make them even better. So I'm suddenly kind of going, my brain's a tool, and I've never thought about my brain. Like, we just don't think about our brains a lot. We think about our thoughts or our feelings or our actions or our behaviors, but not actually about our brain. And it's responsible for everything. And so I'm kind of like, and you can improve your brain. So I'm like, amazing, I've got some of these good things and I've got some really difficult things. How can I improve my brain so that the good things are even better, and I can sort of smooth off some of the bad things?
Mm-hmm. It's almost like the brutal simplicity. You're applying that to your own brain and kind of just almost doubling down on the bits that work. Yes. I think that's really interesting.
Which is what we should be doing for kids. It's what we need to do in business. You find something that works, keep fucking doing it. Don't just rinse and repeat what works. That's the name of the game. And so rather than, it's very simple in the sense of, instead of trying to be good at everything, like they try and school you to be at school, and then you feel shit because you're not good at everything, because no one can be good at everything. Just like double down on the positives. And it's learning when to lean in on the wins and spot the patterns, and then like take the risk and go, that worked. I think it's worked a couple of other times actually. Let's fucking do more of that.
And if you do it on the individual level, enough individuals, that's how you close that gap.
Yeah.
Mate, wicked. Well, look, let's open this up to the floor. If anyone's got any questions, just here, mate.
Funny, I did a talk at school recently, and they got to the any questions bit, and fucking loads of them put their hand up, and it was amazing. But as adults, we wait, don't we?
Wait till the end. Do you know what I mean?
So in your creative process, right? You come up with an idea, something like this. You're speaking about, alcohol-free spirits back in the day sound bananas. In hindsight, there was quite a clear insight that it probably actually made a lot of sense. The younger demographic were drinking less, but they still wanted to go out and have these connections and this and that and stuff like that. So how much of that did you figure out in hindsight and there's actually a narrative to this versus how much of your creative direction came from some of that external research? So how much of it comes from the outside inside? They're like, okay, there's a very interesting insight out there and I'm interested in it. I'm going to go pursue it, versus how much of it's like you're just obsessed with something that you love and sounds bananas, and then it turns out there's a narrative around it.
Really good question. So nothing I've done, whether it's been the charity or Season or the other projects or Seedlip, has come because I wanted to create a business. And none of them have come as business ideas. The Seedlip was because I like growing herbs and stuff at home. And in the same way that I learned how to do taxidermy, and I like making stuff and how things work, learning that you could distill stuff at home and you didn't need alcohol and you didn't need a license to begin with, you just needed plants and water, which is how I started. It started from that, and actually it was really gradual. It was nothing to do with drinks for probably the first good 6 months of playing around, and so it's then another sort of sponge process of, I think, just being open to kind of being curious and going, oh fuck, I've had this horrible pink fruity shitty drink because I'm driving and I'm not drinking alcohol. Okay, that's shit. Oh, maybe there's something I'm doing at home, and maybe I could work with a farm, and then it's the point of going like, okay, I need to look into this. Now I actually need to get on Google. Now I need to go and look at menus. Now I need to contact 500 of the best bars, restaurants, hotels in the UK to almost look at finding the most efficient and effective way to validate the idea. So yeah, it's for me anyway, it doesn't come from a business perspective first.
Any other questions?
How's this work? Mic check, 1, 2. We've heard a lot about you, but how do you find like-minded people to work with to build business? What do you look for?
Really good question, buddy. It comes from part of it comes from what am I not good at and what am I not best at spending my time on, and therefore finding the gaps that way. I am interested, and I've got the proof now that, and I really hope I don't offend anyone in here, but I do offend people sometimes, so let's have a go. I know now categorically, because it's happened 5 times, and I know loads of you in drinks, so hopefully this is helpful, that when I hire a CV and a middle-aged man who's got the fucking most incredible CV, but has maybe never worked at a startup, I have 5 times done that, and 5 times it's gone to shit. And 5 times I've had to let people go. And 5 times it's lasted less than 6 months. So, but I intellectually know that in terms of like hiring on culture and hiring, but I've second guessed myself and gone, things are getting a bit bigger, a bit scarier, need a bit more expertise, get a person that knows about big business. And so I really, a part of me is saying this out loud, so I really don't fucking do it again. So if you do work for a big corporate, don't come and fucking talk to me.
Talk about, I think we talked about this in our first podcast, as those, in terms of finding the cultural fit. I think you talked about those 7 Seedlip questions?
Yeah, we had 7 questions.
7 questions, and you made, not made, but you were kind of looking for that simplicity of thought. What were some of those questions? Because I think that helped people. I think one was like, if you're an animal, what would you be?
Yeah, so David Heyer, I'm sure you guys have heard of him, founder of Do Lectures and Hired Denim. He basically said that, and I totally stole this from him. He said, Hired Denim are an ideas company that make jeans. And so I was like, great, Seedlip's an age company that makes drinks. And we're going to put all the focus on not drinks, but actually nature from a culture and hiring perspective. That opened gave us so much freedom, to kind of do things like Chelsea Flower Show and garden centres and all that kind of good stuff, but also to close the business for a week every August and pay people to go on holiday, but ask them to go and spend it in nature, or hire a guy who had a PhD in cacao to be on our marketing team. So that part of those questions that we asked people were all nature focused, one hand, and then secondly, they were all, can people make things simple? So asking someone not what their next 5 years look like, and you get an essay, asking them to do it in 140 characters. Okay. So it was all like, if they were an animal, what kind of animal would they be and why? We were trying to find these ways of teasing out, even the dinner party, who would you invite to your dinner party, choose 6 guests. All ways to design, I guess, different techniques to understand how someone thought and how bothered they could be. Because if they, they're like, I'd like Elvis, and, but they couldn't give a reason. And kind of to test, I guess, how much they love nature. So yeah, I don't think there wasn't one way we tested whether someone was a good fit. But attitude and work ethic, and being accountable and taking responsibility and being able to be brave, they were all kind of things that we would definitely look for, or ask questions that could help unpick those cool stories if they had examples where they'd been really fearless. Because you've got to be a fucking maniac to work for a startup. And a founder or not founder, you have to be an idiot to do it. And so you're looking for really special people that, like, will get in the trenches and will go through the shit and learn to be uncomfortable. And yeah, that's a really special kind of person, because it's not for everyone.
Hi. Do I need to press anything you said? It's really around actually sort of ideas and doing justice. And are there any ideas that you did have that you didn't do justice, or you wished you'd followed through on?
That is a really good question. I had loads of ideas before Seedlip, and I never did anything with them, and I never followed through. One of them was like, the white company. Why haven't we got any other colours? Why isn't there a black company or a green company? I never did anything with that idea. But I thought that was quite a good idea. So yeah, that would be that one.
Ella?
When you were talking about export and going international, and you were talking about building credibility and finding those 1,000 people in that area, and then did you find and build that credibility before you then went out to distribution partners and got them to start pitching? I.e., did you have some of those key people backing you before you then went to those distributors?
Yeah, it was a bit of a mixture. I guess, with the world of sort of social, people can find and see you more easily than, okay, we're in a shop in England. Well, I'm never in England, so I can't see it. So that helped. Then being some of the chefs, bartenders that have an international presence in the UK, word started to travel. So that was really good. And then ultimately, I would do a lot of traveling. So I would go to a market when we had the nibbles and enough people that I could kind of go, oh yeah, I'm actually coming to your city. Let's meet up. We can taste Seedlip. And then I could contact or respond to a distributor and go, I'm going to be in your city because I'm meeting X, Y, and Z who are really, really fucking cool. Why don't we have a meeting too? And so sort of dovetailing the both, because there was no point in just going and having nice meetings with bartenders if there then wasn't a route to market. But there also wasn't any point in just going and having a meeting with a distributor when there wasn't any demand. So yeah, it was sort of taking quite a grey area approach to it.
And did you do that from
both.
the beginning? That was always your approach, or was that something you figured out along your journey? Just curious
definitely would have been a figuring out job. Definitely a figuring out job. And to be honest, it was partly reactive, partly listening to what came in. But I remember walking into the American bar at the Savoy that was the world's best bar at the time, and the head bartender, who I'd never met, who I'd been introduced to and I had a meeting with, and this was before we launched, said, I've just come back from Greece and they're talking about Seedlip in Greece. And I was like, but we haven't even launched yet. And he's like, yeah, but look, bartenders go and do guest shifts in all these different places and they all talk. So word gets around quite quickly. And that can be amazingly powerful. It can be really bad if they don't like it as well. So yeah, it was a bit of both.
Sweet. Let's wrap that up there. Okay. Thank you so much, Ben.